Well, you just cut in whenever you want to cut in. If you have to change meetings or venue or places. Yeah, we might be done. We'll see.
Okay.
I think, is there a sign-in sheet being passed around? Oh, there we go. I think we
Maybe Josh.
So we're all here? Is it 8:30? Oh, watch out. 8:32. 8:32?
Yep, we're good.
Sheila, you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay. We'll call the Wednesday, December 16th, 2020 Whitewater Joint Powers Board to order. Public comments, anything submitted, Sheila?
No,
Nothing here?
I have none.
Okay. First, approve the minutes of the October 15th meeting. Any questions?
So I'm gonna move approval.
Okay, motion by Josh, second by James. All in favor, say aye.
It's Steve.
Steve.
What? Oh,
It was
Steve did?
Steve,
I
yeah.
thought it was you. You're ventriloquist now.
Josh moved.
I moved, Steve said, I don't know.
Oh,
It doesn't
so
matter.
James.
Yeah, as long as it's right.
We'll get Steve next time.
Very good.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Agenda, yep, Rich got aye. Agenda, Sheila, anything we need to add?
Nope, it is as was sent out. I did send out some extra information to support for the 319 grant, but the agenda still is the same.
Anything to add by the board members? Okay. Motion to approve agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Motion by Josh, second by Steve. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Aye, Rich? Just say aye. Okay. Approve consent items. Sheila, go ahead there.
Okay, for our bills payable this month, we had a residual couple of invoices that I missed last time for $300 from the R&D lab for doing our assessment work for monitoring. We have an invoice for U of M for supporting the 319 grant. We have the invoice for the auditor. And the rest of the invoices are primarily related to the 319 grant. We have 16 cover crop payments, which we will discuss in a little bit, and test plots related with that grant as well. And totals come to $26,724. I did list the MCIT invoice. I have not received it this month yet. I will, but when I do get it, I will have to pay it before the end of January. And I just have the estimated amount of $1413 listed on the accounts billable.
So what's the 2020? One actually has a person's name and the other two just has a number.
Okay, Steve Yoke, he is a crop consultant, so I listed his name because he's helping a farmer with a test plot. And the other two, I just listed them by name. I'm reluctant to list the farmers' names that are receiving payments. So I just identified.
So does that payment go to Steve Yoke, or does
Yes.
it go to?
Yes, it does. And the way the grant was set up is that
So what's he actually doing?
assisting with the test plot. And tying in with that grant, we have, we had Jake, and now we have Jeff, working with the farmers and then doing the test plots. And then if they have a crop consultant, that person is also on the team. So both the farmer and the crop consultant will get a payment of $400. That was written in the grant agreement.
$400, I suppose, so they don't, nobody's 1099. We just kind of see.
I
I'm putting
think
two
that
and two
might have
together
been,
here.
yeah, the 600 cut
That's
off.
my guess.
Yeah.
So.
Any,
Yeah, I'm just wanted to understand it, and, you know, I know he's part of a business and are we, is it open to all businesses or how do you
Yes,
seek out
it's
this
open
one?
to
or-
all businesses, but the farmer selects that individual.
Okay.
Okay, Rich, we're just going over the consent bills, so,
So one more, this Peterson, did that go up or down from last year for audit
It went
costs?
up.
How much?
I think it went up 50, but then the proposal for next year is going up 100.
Okay.
any other questions on the consent bills?
I move to approve the consent items.
Okay, motion by Steve, approve consent items, second by Lynn. All in favor, say aye. 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 Any opposed? Okay, carried. Board reports, Josh, what's happening?
Still back thinking about the cover crop stuff. Wrapped up a big project, or not this month, but the month before, with a couple big things that we had going on. Pavement air pit, still just about finished, but signed some of the biggest checks I'd ever signed for the SWCD for that. Good turnout. We kind of reviewed all of our cover crop stuff, payments. I guess I got to run up and sign a bunch of checks here today. We only had a few people that weren't able to actually fulfill the obligation in the 3 years, so we had a discussion about what that meant. Are they going to be eligible again? Different things like that if they weren't able to, if it wasn't a situation out of their control. So we kind of got some of that stuff cleared up. Just maybe a little bit better understanding for the board members. Other than that, nothing too, I guess, over the top. Just finishing out some year ends, looking forward into different projects that are coming up. Yeah, that's all we got.
James?
Yeah, some cover crop contracts as well. Other than that, not just a whole lot, although looking into using Minnesota natural landscapes, I think, for seeds for like pollinator habitat or natural grass plantings in connection with the tree, the typical or the usual tree sale program. So,
I know one thing I'll add to what we had, we're in discussions trying to figure out a location. Where we're gonna be. I kind of forgot about that one. Government, federal government next to us, in the building and reevaluating, and so we're actually putting together a committee to figure out where we're gonna end up.
So Josh, is it possible you just stay there?
It is, that's my suggestion. There's plenty of room in that building, and we actually discussed just, but in casual conversation, other places to go, including the building that I bought from your brother, because there's room there, but I don't see that feasible. It would definitely work, but why not stay where we're at? And so there's two sides of that building, and I just can't imagine that something in there isn't gonna work. You know what I mean? So I would be pushing to do that, as long as the space and the cost was where we wanted it to be. But it sounds like the RCS office wants to be completely segregated from the SWCD. Lockable doors, don't share bathrooms, no conference rooms, nothing. They want 100% lunchrooms, the whole works. It is their side. You might as well be a dental clinic. They don't want that interaction. So, which, to a certain extent, I can see that, with the habitat that we have now, kind of commingling is nice because it does allow for a little bit of fluency in there. And so that kind of sets us apart, and depending on staffing situations and sizes and everything else. And, we've got a very, very small conference room that makes it difficult to have meetings. So there's a possibility, depending on what they need for space and what the SWCD needs for space, that, maybe we'll move to one side of the building or the other. we'll see what goes. But there's plenty of room in that building to make something work, if the landlords are willing to hold the suit.
Okay, Josh, I had a phone call after that meeting from a potential landlord who would like to bid for that business. So I'm just, would ask that, you know, that you don't just kind of automatically give it to the existing landlord, that the public can
I'm in the
interact
same
and-
game,
Yeah.
you know, I could bid for it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the thing saying, boy, there's plenty of room in here, but if it really is gonna come down to, you know, the NRCS, we don't have anything to say about that.
And I told him, I think he thought Winona County had some kind of authority in the governance of it, and I told him I didn't, so.
And, you know, what the NRCS decides to do is what they're gonna decide to do.
Yeah.
And really, I think for us, watching what they do and what they need will be the deciding factor as to whether we need to move or, you know, stay there or put it out for a bid or whatever we do. I'm just making sure that everybody understands I'm not biased or anything, just because I'm in part of that process. So, yeah, so it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
All right, Steve?
We've been dealing kind of with what Wabasha dealt with the sand dredging. You know, we denied a permit for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to use one of our privately owned county quarries to put sand, so they're gonna have to go with some other option there. Jail, that's, we're just dealing with that. Public is motivated on giving a lot of input on that, and then the other issue is the Daily Farms lawsuit has kind of been moving forward, and a lot of stuff coming out in the emails that there was apparently emails putting 3 county commissioners together with Land Stewardship Project, and then planting Land Stewardship Project members onto both the Planning Commission and the Board of Adjustment, and the emails are proving out that there was an organized, colluded plan, and you know the county should be unbiased. So if you're going to be on the Planning Commission or Board of Adjustment, you should not have taken a formal position or be fighting, be a lead fighter against an issue before you vote on it. So the county attorney apparently has to defend those 3 county commissioners. I'm not part of that, and I don't know if it's still, those are the allegations in the lawsuit, or that's clearly what happened in the emails I read through them. So, and the 3 commissioners would have broke the open meeting law by having really a serial meeting through these people, if not directly with each other. So I don't know. It's messy, and it is what it is. And I'm going to guess that at a minimum, the work that's been done on that will be thrown out, and we'll have to start over, or it could even be that the courts would just rule in favor of just giving Daly's the variance. So those are all potentials, I think. So we're working through that process.
Good. Lynn?
Well, seems like COVID problems are a deal. We've got the 3 new employees, which they're doing great, but because of the COVID restrictions, and our office was pretty much completely gutted of employees that knew what they were doing before we started with them. We were trying to like share with some other places to get training, but not that much is going on, and no one really wants that much personal contact, so we're having a little slow time, you know, getting up to speed, but we're working on it any way we can as far as non-direct, you know, on the computer or whatever. And then the NRCS office that shares with us was going, we're like one person for 10 days or something, and then switching. So then we had decided to do a more moderate response to that whole thing, but now we're kind of forced into doing more extreme measures and more isolation, and one person in there and so forth. So I mean, that's just always makes everything difficult. We're having our meeting tomorrow. We're going to have our planning session afterwards. Got to figure out what's going on for next year, but it's, I feel a little frustrated just because of all this, like everyone probably does. You know, it just puts a wrench in a lot of gears.
Hey, Rich, you got anything for board reports?
Not really, other than, this will be my last meeting with you guys.
Yeah, I hear that there. So we got the champagne here all ready to go. So
Got those little pole deals.
yeah, okay.
You won't have to do the telephone thing anymore. Depending upon how the next guy wants to do it, I guess.
Yes.
No, I've enjoyed working with you. This is one of the communities that I always kind of enjoyed. It's been a little rough this last year.
Yeah, we might as well, again, Rich, I want to thank you too, because like I say, you and I have been doing this a long time, and this has been enjoyable. We have a little certificate here for you, we'll get to you, but 16 years, I think it was, Sheila's? No, I
It should be on the
think
certificate.
12 or 16, or,
What does it say?
we're looking
Assistant Dave, September
12.
The commission,
12 years.
12 years.
Yeah, 12 years. Now you can write your book, or make a movie, or be a consultant. Be a consultant.
You want a job?
Again, we all appreciate it, Rich. So
Yeah, we do.
you take care.
Gonna miss you, Rich.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll move on. Oh, board reports for me. Monday, Lynn, me, and Sheila were on this kickoff of that Mississippi watershed one plan.
WinLAC for short.
Minlac, so we had that. So get that started, I guess. So go from there. That's all I have. So. All right. Board discussion action. A, financial update. Sheila?
Okay, first of all, I set out the 2019 audit, everybody's copy at your place, and we approved it at the last meeting. I also have the 2020 proposal from Peterson that I have to sign it, and Matt will have to sign it, and then I can send it in, and they will start the audit for the year 2020 shortly after 2021 starts. So I have that for approval. As far as the updates, as of October 31st, we checking and money market, we had $95,100 in the accounts combined after subtracting out accounts received but not yet earned. And that amount was, at the end of November, was $95,250. We had received some payments, so that's why it's a little bit higher. And that's all I have.
Any questions of that? So we need a motion on the next year audit proposal
Right, and that's,
on here.
yeah.
And as we said earlier, 100.
If you're busy, please try your call again later. Announcement 8, switch to 1
Oh, boy.
dash 2 1.
I will call back.
We'll call it that. So
Okay.
basically $100 more. You know, just $100
Yes.
or something like
Yep,
that.
it's $100 more than what we had previous.
I know we talked about the Smith Schaefer deal, I probably get more, right? Can we bring that up a little bit?
Hi, we lost you for a second there. My cell phone is not working well, but we got you.
Okay.
You're back. Oh, Rich, we're in the financial update to approve, continue with the same audit company. So, and it's gonna be $100 more next year than this year, so, the proposal.
So, I mean, seen many of these, right? Are we getting what we need? That's always the big question. Is anything,
Well, you know, we've talked about that before, and I know Wanda likes something more than what they provide.
but I think she's trying to straighten some things out.
Yes, and plus you have payrolls.
Right.
We don't have payroll to deal with, so it's a lot.
They've always been the bargain in the industry. That may not be up in other
Yeah,
places.
a lot of the
obviously.
SWCs use them.
Yeah, municipalities, but I think it's really 80,000 foot with these guys. And I argued a little bit at the last meeting that, you know, we were trying to straighten all this stuff out, but yet they're pushing the bar up here to figure out what we actually
Right,
have.
right.
So sometimes it's hard to get things across, but yeah, as long as we're getting the info that we think and we're on track, I don't see any need to get in
Yeah.
depth.
And mostly what they do is check that we received the money and that we spent the money, you know, that there's,
Traceability, accountability.
right.
Can I ask what's the lowest our balance has fallen to during the course of the year? Or
Which balance? The balance of the money market and the checking?
Yeah, yep, combined.
I want to say about 70,000. I would have to check on that.
I usually look at it every month. I don't remember it
Yeah.
ever dipping below 50 or every time I get
Yeah.
one.
I look at it too,
I don't think
but
it's
it
ever
seems like
been
it's
below
50,
50.
60 in my,
Yeah, that's,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
until the funds come back in and we.
Right, because they're reimbursable. You spend the funds, you do the report, you get the funds, so it kind of,
So, the reason I ask is because just my personal general philosophy is I'm not a fan of government hoarding taxpayers' dollars. And I want to make sure we always have plenty to operate on, but to me, approaching 100,000 for this organization seems a bit much. And it's not that there's any problems with this board, but a future board of elected people like, hey, we have this money, we could do this, we could do that, and then they start saying, well, we're gonna need a little bit more from the taxpayer, and they start, I like to, and then also like with the Winona County Board, we look at our outside agencies and we're like, well, that one has a big budget, we're not gonna, we don't need to give you that money anymore because you have plenty. So, to me, if the lowest we've fallen is to 50,000, that means we're operating between 50 and 90. We only need about 40,000-ish to,
I would agree with you. I've gone this a long time. Sometimes has been big projects, and we needed that money to cover it. So I'm comfortable with the 50 to 100,000. I really am. You know, again, do some of these projects cost a lot of money.
that's the exact, the reason that I have those concerns is that's the exact attitude I get like from all the internal departments within Winona County. And at one point, they turned around and built a $6 million building without the need to ask the county board because they all had these, we need to make sure we err on the side of having plenty in our account. And so just as a steward of the taxpayers' dollars, I disagree with your position of needing that kind of money to hoard the taxpayers' dollars in case we need it. So I would prefer to keep it lower, personally.
well,
I have an opinion. When I was on the school board in Plainview and then Plainview, Elginville, it seemed like there were regulations that there was like a limit to what we could have. And then it always encouraged everybody to blow some money out the door for something or other to keep that limit down or shift it to other departments and so forth. Excuse me. Anyway, so like you mentioned, sometimes if we do have a bigger project come through, it'd be good to have it on hand. Do we have any like regulations controlling this organization or limits as far as what's the acceptable parameters for on hand?
I have not seen anything like that. But with what Steve says, what I can do is I can go back and look historically and see, and you know, right now we've got $95,000 that's in the bank that is a 40% payment, or no, 50% payment on a grant from Bowser. So that's set there for that certain purpose. That's why I subtract that out. And but I could go look through historically and see where we have been for that bottom line after taking out accounts received but not yet earned or not yet spent for the project that we received it for. And I could certainly do that and for comparison for next meeting, just to see where we have been historically and then on this list of the projects that we've had during those timeframes.
One factor would be interest on accounts isn't what it used to be, so we're losing money there in a way, saving it versus using it for some good purpose. So that would be one reason to probably support your view.
I've got a suggestion. You know, the projects that come and go, and again, just I'm thinking both sides of the coin. I definitely can see these two sides. You know, in the SWCD municipalities, things, you know, we usually have an operating reserve, right? Where we know we've got a static amount of expenses 6 months out, cover all the expenses. So it'd be interesting to see what that would be, such as your time, typical, you know, shared office, things that we know, I mean, in essence, you know, how we're doing that. So it'd be interesting to have that number to say, okay, here's our 6 months reserve. And then as a board, we could look and say, okay, what would be appropriate to set back for any, you know, prorated amount of whatever the largest project we could ever conceive, you know. So if it's a $100,000 project and we want 25% of the money, that'd be $25,000 plus our operating reserve, or $10,000 plus our operating reserve to, you know, cover a certain portion of that. That would maybe be a way for us to kind of achieve both sides of that coin, making sure that we're not overfunded, but yet if something on the odd chance were to come about, we could at least have some sort of appropriated money to get the project started or something, and then we do that. But I would want to see that operating reserve. You know, what is that number?
Yeah, I
So,
can do that for the next meeting. Just
Okay,
kind of-
most of this thing is grants. I think Homestead County puts $8,000, $8,300 into this.
Right.
And I couldn't tell you what Winona does off the top
It's
of my
about
head.
7,900.
Okay, 7,900, 8,000, Wabasha, I have
2,500.
2,500. That is your base dollar amount. All the over and beyond that is strictly grants. So if we go forward and say, we got too much money, then when we apply for a grant, are we gonna say, well, we don't need that much money? It's, the only thing we can turn back, in my view, is the county's allocations. Those are the only dollar numbers you theoretically go from year to year not using.
I'm not really suggesting that we turn things back, but I am concerned about a growing account, and that's why I would like to see what's happened with it. And we have, if you look at 2012, 2013, Josh, on Winona County SWCD, we looked at your account. Winona County said that's too big. We cut them to zero for a number of years. Just like this organization, our Winona County says, well, why do we need to fund you when you've got all this money sitting in an account? So, I mean, I'm not really wanting that to happen, but I'm just saying, not all governments are in the same boat as you are, Matt. You guys, your budgets are huge, and this seems like peanuts, but to small counties and small organizations, $100,000 is a lot of money. And that's money that we're taking from the taxpayer just in case we need it. I'm not saying we already have a use for it and it's designated. We're just going to keep it on hand in case we want to use it later. And so, and just philosophically, that's not where I come from as a representative of my constituency. I come from take the minimum amount I can, do the maximum I can with it. And then the other thing I've seen is politically, you get a large account, and all at once these positions become sought after by, I'll just say it, left-wing liberal political people. They say there's money that can be spent, and we need to get control of that. And then they collude with people on boards, and they get appointments to these positions, and those kind of things can happen. So I don't want to see the account excessive. I want to see it as necessary.
If we get grants, that's supposed to go towards useful work. So that should be spent if we can, right? So then from what it sounds like, the little bit, which isn't little, but I mean, the amounts that we're getting from the different counties and organizations, that's probably more for like your baseline administrative type, taking care of the,
And that's correct. So basically 25,000 comes from the counties, to support staff or rent or equipment.
That's,
The
I
idea
guess
of a
that would be
grant is get the grant to do projects. You know, that's what,
So
That's
really what we need to
mission.
do is try to find more good work to do, I guess, to use the money would be,
yeah.
if we didn't want to diminish our presence.
But
For-
to me, the base of this organization is the county grants, 25,000. So I see your point, Steve, and you're right. I just got done with the Olmsted County budget yesterday. 240 million, so I look at it different number-wise, so. But I see.
This
yeah,
is a
people-
drop.
It's all relative.
This is-
It's
this
completely
is-
relative. If I had
this is-
if I had a
to me,
16-year-old
this is
kid
a
with
lot-
$400 in his checking account.
I see a lot of money go
Yeah.
other ways, which I don't
Yeah.
agree with, and I go, what? You know?
Yeah, but I see it setting the table for things that happen in the future.
Yeah, well, I can tell that.
Well, and a lot of times, Steve, and this goes with Steve's point, is a lot of times as that number builds, all of a sudden people begin, like you said, they begin to say, wow, wait a minute, what are these guys doing? And you can draw artificial negative attention to yourself too, because people say, well, why do you have all this money? Well, you guys are, oh, you're that important, you know? And so I see both sides, and I still go back to, what I'm hearing is in a business and anything else, is we've got kind of a call to question, is where our account balances, are they necessary to be there? And I go back and say theoretically, we need to know what our operating expenses are. We need to be able to make sure that we can cover those as a board, which is kind of a the state actually says 6 months, right?
Yeah, so we go by 6
Yep,
months.
6 months, that's what the state recommends. Do we have that? Are we able to spend it? And then after that, what's left? What's the forward projection on that? And maybe this number needs to be set at 50,000. Maybe it needs to be 25. Maybe it is 75. I have no idea. I would want to know what that number would be, and then forward projection on the grants. And I definitely agree. I'm not a hoarder of taxpayers' money, and the bigger that number gets, the easier it becomes to spend it. Sometimes not necessarily always in the right spots. It's just a means of let's get rid of it so we can ask for more. And are we doing the best thing?
Or is there money that we could just say, we're gonna add to the cover crop account? That would be a way
Well, I
to
agree
disperse
there.
it. I mean, we wanna keep it at a minimum. We don't want it available for frivolous, government, finding a way to justify having it. Here's a spot to put it on the ground.
No, like you say, cover crops have been very popular if we can expand it.
In my opinion, there's still conservation work to be done. We're certainly not there yet, so I would think we should be able to.
We need to have a cap, though. I mean, that is very, that's just good. That's just good business, you know? I'm not gonna leave millions of dollars in my checking account for a company if I don't need it, because if I get sued, now it's subject to that money, right? I mean, this is just standard business, you know what I mean?
Cap on grants or cap on running the business?
No, I just mean, we need to make sure that we're not doing what Steve said, that, hey, we've got money here to operate, but yet we're not just hoarding it and putting it in to the side, unless we have.
I don't think we are, but I think in my 9 years, I think that account has grown.
I don't think so. Sheila, you'd have to go through the records.
Yeah, I'll have to go through it.
Again, I don't know, Steve.
But of course, money's not worth what it used to be either. That's
Yeah,
one of
right.
the factors.
Caveat.
It just seems to me that balance has been on that 90,000 to 100 for a long time. So, hey, Rich, you still out there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
We're talking about our financial history here. Do you have any recollection, basically, what our balance has been over the years?
I really don't.
Okay. Okay, we're just trying to
Yeah,
get a what do I say, a history of
yeah.
where we've been and where we're at. So,
I'd have to look back through some notes and stuff. I don't have all that right here, so.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
Well,
And
that's what
I'll do that for the next time.
That's
I can
just-
just come up with a,
Do our due diligence and do a little research, and then we'll know more.
yeah, I can do that.
Excuse
Yeah.
me. But on this, like, page 4 here, where you got the excessive revenues and the fund balance, that's totally up to that 97. So what's that consist of?
Okay, so that's the fund balance as of December 31st that Whitewater had to its name at the end of the year. And, you know, and that might be kind of, and that's kind of awkward too, because reports are due January 31st for up through December 31st. So there's always, depending on what that last invoice is for grants at the end
So
of the
you
year.
think the 44 is designated?
Fund balance.
Or is it all undesignated? For sure the 52 is undesignated, right? But is the 44 undesignated as well? Does it already have a, is it in our account designated for something?
Most, other than the operating expenses that we get from the counties, essentially all of the money is dedicated for grants. Now, I'm not sure if that's the same term that an auditor uses, you know, but that's the way I think about it. And I do, and maybe I could review and ask the auditor what is meant by that particular number in there.
Okay, I want to know that.
Okay.
All right, we'll get some more data. I say we gotta make a motion in this audit. Did we make a
Yes.
motion in an audit?
Yeah.
We
So
did.
moved.
I think so.
Second?
All right, motion by Josh, second by James. We continue with the same company. All in favor, say aye.
Right?
Aye. Rich, you want the same audit company?
Aye.
All right, approved. All right, next, anything else on the financial?
No, that should
Lost
be
track
it.
here. All right, B, 319 nitrogen reduction grant update.
Okay.
Number one, approval of grant amendment.
Okay, the grant, when we initially started this grant, it was just approved by this board, and then I had to go in online. There's the SWIFT account that MPCA uses for all of their grants, so I had to get a password and do it all online. So that's how we did the grant when we received it. And now with COVID impacting the nitrogen rate trials with the farmers this year, and with, you know, and in part with Jake leaving, MPCA and the EPA have authorized one-year extensions on all of their grants. So that's what so Jeff Vetch, when he filled in for Jake, he was able to do 2 test plots. He wasn't able to do all 6 because of the timing, and so on isolation, he couldn't personally meet the farmers to do these test plots. So he did 2 this year, and he will do 4 next year. So in light of that, we have a 1-year extension. So I went through the motions to get that, and it was approved by the MPCA and the EPA. And Emily Zanone, who's our project manager at the MPCA, she said, as long as you're going to do that, we're going to extend the end date 1 year. So I'll go to September 30th, 2022. She said, why don't you go through the rest of the grant, you know, the budget, and if there's any adjustments that need to be made, make those adjustments. The overall total amount of the grant still remains the same, but there were some, and we talked about this at the SWCD, some of the cover crop contracts did not get fulfilled. So we have some money that's sitting there, and if we don't use it, it goes back to the
There's 4 or 5 of them.
Well, total about $12,000. Two of the cover crop contracts with Winona County were not completed the 3rd year for various reasons.
Yeah, the other ones are all in the 2nd year. Aren't they?
No, this
No.
is the 3rd year.
The 3rd year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And with Olmsted County, it's the same thing. So anyway, what I did is, in conversation with MPCA, said, what can we do with those funds? And then there were also some funds that we could not use for testing. So I trimmed that down a little bit, talking with Jeff. But what we did do is we beefed up the outreach outreach and education for farmers piece, and we put in a series of 3 online workshops. We figured that would be, knowing how this is going this year, we don't know, but doing online workshops with farmers to work on finance, like a financial farm workshop. How can we identify what aspects of my farm operation are losers, I mean they're not making money, and what are the winners, and we need to add to that. So looking at that and then tying it in with cover crops and with nitrogen application rates, and basically kind of honing in on that the bottom line is improved if you can use a little bit less nitrogen, but yet still statistically having the same yield, which is what has been tied really well with the nitrogen test plots that the farmers have been doing. So that's what we did, because I didn't want to put the money into administration because that doesn't make sense. So this is something that, funds that will go to the farmers, that they can participate, to offset the cost of them to participate in this workshop. And so that's what I did primarily in the budget. And so, and that work plan is included in your packet. And then I put at your, and I think I emailed it yesterday or the day before. Basically, this is what the last amendment that we did, which changed the end date of the grant. And I just highlighted in yellow what it will look different on the one from MPCA.
What does SWIFT stand for? I tried to look at some info website, I could not
Well,
find it.
I keep calling it SWIFT, but it's not very fast. It's a very cumbersome program. It deals with the financial, F stands for finances. I cannot tell you what it is. It's
All right.
SWIFT, and the state of Minnesota, particularly the MPCA, uses. I think the Department of Transportation also uses it. You know.
That's a big deal, that blank form online and stuff, I mean, the guideline, but.
Yeah.
One other short comment, as we talked about nitrogen, there was some anhydrous ammonia put on this fall, and I don't know what the status is with the new regulations. I didn't think that was supposed to happen, but
Oh.
I got a couple other sources that.
Well, I think they can if they don't take any government programs.
But who's that? I mean, I don't know of anybody that doesn't hardly except me. I'm a fool, but.
No, I know some guys that don't, they won't have any part of it. I don't think the government has any control over what that farmer does.
Okay,
I know some large farmers that don't.
everybody ever check online, it's like 2 million, so I don't know. But I'm sure there could be some that don't.
I'm just suggesting that could be a reason
No.
why they, they're just saying we're gonna do what we do.
Well, as long as that came up, if you don't mind,
Okay.
I'll cover this. I've got something that's been bothering me for 30 years, and I said a little bit at our meeting the other day, but like in the 90s, I had noticed a few farms that were all stripped back in the 40s, and then maybe the dad died, finally the kids rented it out, worked the thing end to end. And I was in the farm program in the past, and I noticed that my strips where I had like 8 fields on 60 acres were highly erodible land, but right across the fence line was non-highly erodible land, even though one time so much dirt ran down from their field onto mine, they had to have, I can't think of the name of the company, but they had someone come with a cat and trucks and hauled like 70 loads of dirt back up into their field off of my hay field, which was wrecked, and wasn't highly erodible land. So that got me to thinking. I did some research, and well, I found out, I thought maybe like you did, maybe they didn't get the farm program, so I checked a particular person that has big tupelo deep ruts for like a quarter mile every year, sometimes spring and fall, and nope, 2 million since 90 to 2020, so that wasn't it. So then, I got a flyer from NRCS outside the office at Wabasha there. I looked that over, absolutely, highly erodible land, you don't follow the practices of minimum till or no till and all that, no farm program. So I thought, okay, so then I had to do some more research on computer and I found the answer, which was by field, 33.3%. If it's more highly erodible land than that, then it's highly erodible land, but if it's not. So theoretically, if you had a whole farm that was stripped, but there's a good spot up on the hill here, you had 150 acres, you could have like 49 acres of hideous shit that you can't believe, and no, you can just work it like normal. That's according to the regulations, which was shocking to me. And this is kind of a bad thing to say, but I mean, it's almost like if the problem with the church, if you had 100 priests and only 32 were doing the bad thing, not a problem. So that's why I'm so frustrated with the way things are. I think we should try to change that regulation so that each acre has to be treated accordingly with the proper practices that it needs, instead of letting it be lumped together, which is more of a thing I think with super large farmers are more able to do that, and what I've observed as well. So that's my bit on that.
It's a question for Josh. Would there be records of the number of farms not in the program somewhere? I have no
There'd
idea.
have to be.
You know, the FSA, you know, obviously they have other clients, but would they have a list of them that people aren't in any program?
And I think the other thing is that some farmers will continue to take the government program money and then violate what they're supposed to do based on the fact that worst case scenario is all the government can do is withhold the money, and then I'll just not be part of that at that point. Until then, they're going to continue to take the money.
But
I think that might be there. I think that might be the way some farmers
But
operate.
this is something we try to target people that get these practices. But do we know how many farms that, I just picture some elderly people, but I don't know, that just aren't in any program, how many of them are left? I have no idea. Would that be something we could find out?
Well, I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
My concern is if I'm that farmer, I don't really want the government looking at me at all. That's why I'm
Yeah, I know.
doing it. So why are you scrutinizing
Well,
me?
which is true, they don't want to be while you're watching me. Yeah, I understand
And
that.
to your point, I agree with
Yeah.
everything you're saying, and I'm looking at, it's probably this evolved the way it did because for it to have evolved the way you want it to have evolved, it really becomes a micromanaging, and we're going to need a lot more government employees to micromanage every acre instead of these plots of acres. So it's every person's dream that wants growth of government to micromanage as much as we can, because we make more rules, the only way to solve them is with more government. And we pit neighbor against neighbor, and government grows. So on one hand, I want the land protected. On the other hand, I'm not a fan of expanding government at every corner.
Well,
Here's the real issue. If these people, this is what I keep telling everybody, I am a capitalist. I'm a conservative capitalist. That's what I am. And at the end of the day, the reality of it is, and I keep saying this over and over and over, if people don't start doing this stuff on their own, government will control it, because we're not going to win this. We're going to end up like Europe. That's what it's going to end up like. And just go ask them, because this is the mentality they had. The government stepped in and they said, okay, you're all out of control. You don't want to do, we've given you the liberty to self-regulate. We've given you the liberty
And
to
you
do the
destroyed
right
things.
thing. What's that?
And you destroy
And
it.
some of you chose to, and some of you chose not to, but it's not enough, because the ones that aren't choosing to, we now have to regulate it. And that is the door that opens up. It's the Pandora's box. And this is why I keep going back, like this whole buffer strip. Did fixing the lawns, did taking phosphorus out of fertilizer fix anything, out of the lawn fertilizer? No. Did it take it out of the golf courses? No. Still have the problem. Did nutrient manure plants, did it fix the problem? No, still have the problem, right? Okay, now we got the buffer strips. Nope, does that fix the problem yet? Nope, still got the problem. Where does it stop?
I think it fixes the problem because there's no teeth in anything.
The problem with it is that I keep telling people, it's not gonna end until you take responsibility for your land. That's the reality. So if you don't want government control, you best do your part. And going to the government and turning in your neighbor just does exactly what he says, but at the same time, those people have to understand that they're going to continue to get regulated. So the biggest thing is getting the message out there. And sometimes you can't do it by talking to people, but they're watching their neighbor put green, cover crops in, sequestering. What is that pulling up? Phosphorus, nitrogen, right? And indirectly and direct methods can help with that. So the real reality is the message every day when I go out and talk to farms, we have dealers scattered all over 5 states now. We just had a huge meeting yesterday with people in 5 states. My message is continuously, people wake up. We're actually dealing with nitrogen. We'll have a conversation about this, what Europe's doing to cut back in using biologicals to make huge differences. I've researched and researched, and we've come down with 2 very good ones. This is what they've been forced to do. It's coming into the States, but until everybody adopts it and adapts to this program, they're either going to do it fast to avoid regulation, or they're going to do it slow and regulation is going to go fast if they don't start taking responsibility for their land. And so that is always my message, guys. And my coined phrase is the buffer strip is the easy one. That's the easy one, guys. That's easy. What's coming next is you walking into an office and saying, I need to lobby for so much nitrogen. I need to lobby for so much phosphorus. And then sitting back and backbuilding a program based on what the government says you get to buy on those lands. And then all of a sudden, those non-productive acres become really important, because you sure as heck ain't going to take the little bit they give you and put it in an area that isn't going to produce. And then that's how the government forces you to pay attention. And that's what's coming if we don't start taking responsibility for our ground. So that is the message that needs to go to your neighbors. Not, hey, I'm going to turn you in. It needs to be that message that says if we don't do it, somebody else will tell us. And chances are, they don't know it as well as what we do, as well as the farmer does. They don't know their ground as well as the farmer does. And so to me, bring that message forward everywhere you go. It's not a scare tactic. It is reality. It's what's going to happen if we don't do it.
Well, the other thing I've heard come from you, Josh, that I would piggyback on is the other way the farmer's going to see it is if it's better for his own bottom line.
That's right.
If he sees that I do these practices, I don't lose that soil to my neighbor, and then my farm produces more. If he sees that without the government saying this is how you have to do it, that will motivate a lot of farmers just through their own pocketbook.
And that's the cover crop aspect.
Just say this,
Yeah.
it's hard to get people there because maybe the transition is hard too. I have personal experience because I've got some land that was ran by a crop farmer for 20 years, and I got 149 bushel corn on there last year and 49 bushel beans this year, even with proper fertilizer, soil tests, everything. Something's not right. My strips in my field at home, I got 75 bushel beans, where strips, alfalfa rotation, and so forth. So, I mean, there's money there to do it right, but once land is where you dig in and there's no worms compared to mine, I set gophers and there's like 7 earthworms right there in the hole. So, I mean, that makes a big ass difference.
It's the biological link. That's the thing. There's 3 sides of the soil. So what's happened is you can have similar dirt with the biological link to that. I'm not talking biotech. I'm talking living organisms is what's gone. So you can fertilize all you want, but the ability for that fertilizer to be able to be plant available works through biology. There's a chemical and a physical side to our chemical and biological side.
Takes time to get there.
Takes
But
time to get
your
there.
point is good.
Flocculation, air
About
infiltration, all those things are efficiency factors.
About neighbors working together or influencing is good, because I have a neighbor that they've just plowed everything in the fall for years, and I said to him this year when I was baling corn stalks, why don't you plant some no-till beans on some of that? And like 2 days later, he asked me, well, what do you got to do to no-till? I said, nothing. Just leave it, I'll come and plant next week. So that was kind of a personal victory I thought good about it.
So,
Do we need to check with Rich to see if he has the lead? and it's almost 9:30.
Oh, Rich, you still there? You gotta leave. I've been pointing out, it's almost 9, is it 9:30?
Almost there.
27.
Right about now, so.
Well, Rich,
Thank
again,
you.
thank you, Rich. We'll take care. Please keep in contact. You always come back down here now.
Visit us.
Visit us.
I'll be mailing you your certificate.
So,
Rich, of all the people I know, I quote you more than anyone because you have the most wisdom. I'm serious about that.
Yeah.
Just for that, you can take us all out for lunch too.
when the restaurant's open sometime. Okay, thank you, Rich. Take care.
Thanks a lot.
Do I have to shut this off or is it automatic?
I think it's already shut off.
Okay, let's keep going here. Now I forgot. Where were we?
We're waiting for the
Approval of grant
approval of the
amendment?
grant
Is that-
amendment to extend the end date
Extend the
and
grant
to shift
amendment?
the
Is that the
funds.
plan?
Well, so I did want to speak to where Sheila left off before we all took off. So the way you were describing the way some of this would work would be if the farmer really is willing to see that less nitrogen application will potentially help his bottom line, he's eligible for some of these monies that we have available.
No, that kind of ties in with that, and that's what's happening with the nitrogen test plots, you know.
Okay.
Doing one rate on this strip, another rate on this row, and then statistically comparing the yield to see, you know, by using less input, is my yield still comparable? And therefore, because my input is less, then my bottom line is improved, even though my,
So-
yeah.
Okay, so I totally get that that's the perfect world, and this is where I
Right.
struggled with some of Jake's work,
Mm-hmm.
was that sometimes
Don't open up
the
this.
information proved that they'd have been better if they'd have put more nitrogen on it.
Yes, I
And
agree.
then we're quiet and we don't give them the money.
Or, don't get me wrong, but there's a day a couple of years ago when he put up, and I'm not, actually I just talked to Jake the other day, he's working on Organic Valley, he called me because he had questions. Doing experiments that are not relative to your area, or doing experiments that actually are misleading. And this is where I had to bite my tongue extremely, and this is where, Sheila, I want to be careful with these test plots, because the reality of it is you can drive 2 miles and be in a totally different site where you're going to see nitrogen influence completely different.
Yeah.
And this is what I argued with Jake when he did a side dress study on 37 CEC soils, and his justification to CEC's exchange capacity, and we're dealing with an anion, which he's 100% right, but if you don't understand that a heavy soil has a higher nitrogen holding capacity than all the sand, we got big problems. And so to go back and make a large claim that there's no benefit to side dressing nitrogen and managing our nitrogen based on the heaviest soil we can find in Minnesota, which is a small amount of it, just had me up in arms, because, you know, you go to Galesville, you ask them if they put all their N up front and see what they say. It's never going to happen. So I think we need to be very, very cautious in these nitrogen studies, because there are so many variabilities in the soils with uptake, types of nitrogen applied, timing, weather patterns, total N needs, how are we applying it, when are we applying it. There's so many variables in this to try to come up with a conclusive number or statistic that says we should follow this guideline.
Yeah, so I'm completely on board with what we're trying to do and where this is going. It's just I want to make sure that it's very easy. A lot of people, I'm one of them, are skeptical of, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Yep. That's a Ronald Reagan dealer right there.
Okay, so if we give any inkling that we're trying to get you to see this outcome, let's just do do the process, let them see the outcome, and maybe 1 out of 10 years, they'd have been better putting more nitrogen on. Just let them see that and make their own decisions, instead of, we can only expand on this if it shows that less nitrogen is better.
And I think in this scenario,
And I think it will lead to where we want to go without damaging anyone's kind of,
you're right, and
Psychological
you're
connection,
basically
yeah.
throwing information out without making claims.
yeah.
And that's the whole point to this, is I don't think we can make a claim because there's too many variables to this, but to produce the information and then allow people to ask questions or to let them decide on their own is gonna be more crucial. And here's what I will say with the information: be sure the variables are noted. Wet, dry, types of soil, CECs, because farmers are getting more and more educated about how they can't just open up a book and say, well, looks like such and such from the university said side dressing's no good. Shut the book, and now we set a standard for 4 years.
Right.
They're starting to read between the lines. And the internet's really blown that up. So just as long as we don't get so statutized in the results that, hey, this is the way we do it. No-till is the same exact way. I could give you a list of downfalls for hours and hours and hours of no-till farming.
If you
But in
guys work
time-
soil, I think it's very hard.
but in
to
time-
transition.
Those things could turn. I can even tell you what happens in the soil bound, in the crusting aspect, and how the biology regenerate, and what actually creates what we want in the soil. Anybody starting to study this? It's not residue, guys. Okay, it's not the top residues. It's actually not that. It's actually not even the tops of the cover crops. It's not a lot of this stuff. They're linking it all back to roots. What's found in roots.
Yeah, but we can't see the roots, we can only see the part growing on top.
Right, but this is why I was telling you, you need to take it off, you still have the roots, we knew it was a benefit. So is it all that residue laying on top? But all the science is going back to what's actually regenerating the soils and the roots.
I've got a question,
Yeah.
bringing that up, sorry.
Yep.
But I planted no-till beans on corn stalks always, and the corn stalks seem to degrade like it's not even an issue, but I've heard other people talk about, oh, the corn stalks pile up for years and then you can't even plant, you gotta work them under. That must be some sort of organisms doing it, because I get 225 bushel corn, I know it's not that I don't have stalks,
Right.
but they seem
And
like
this
they
is
degrade.
there's probably gonna be a discussion outside of the board meeting here,
Yeah.
and it's what I call earning the right. Okay, it doesn't happen overnight, and there's an economic threshold you gotta pass to get past these things. So we can have that discussion as to why that happens, but let's just focus on the fact that there's more than just one way of doing things, and I keep preaching that message on every single one of these boards, guys. Don't pigeonhole farmers into the corner, because you're never gonna get them all to agree. Again, there's farmers in this room, do you all agree on everything? It's never gonna happen. So stop thinking that as any single one of these boards, we're gonna force people to farm. That is government telling you how to farm. The reality of it is you've gotta educate people, allow them to make decisions, encourage them to do better, and let them farm. But with the governance or the oversight of, hey, if you don't do a better job, other people will step in and tell you how to do it. That's where it's at.
All right, let's get back to it.
Do you want a motion here?
Let's get back, you want to extend this grant or what?
Yes.
We're trying to do this.
Yeah.
So we're on number 1.
One, yes.
I
Steve.
move to approve number 1.
Second.
Okay, motion by Steve, second by Josh.
Okay.
Any other questions? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good, carries. Number 2, covered
Okay.
crop payment. Oh, you had something else to
Yeah,
mention?
no, that's what I got the cover crop payments. Go ahead.
Covered crop payments.
Okay, I've got several cover crop payments, and like I said, I have them all listed in the bills payable by the number on the front. And these are the farmers that participated in cover crops, and for all of these farmers, this is their 3rd year. All the payments are $900. And
So are they allowed to refile? Are they allowed to do it again?
no,
Okay.
no, this is their 3 years working with Olmsted and Winona County SWCD staff as technical assistants and getting approvals I take that back. One of them is a second-year payment.
I read it through.
But the last numbered one for.
I got to see it.
Anyway, so this is the mostly, all but one, this is their third year of their cover crop, and they completed everything according to the specifications. And and these are all tied with the 319 nitrogen reduction grant.
Just quick question.
Yep.
Yes,
Earlier, we vote on the consent agenda, so these have all been passed already.
right, yeah.
Okay, any questions of that? Like I said, we passed them at the consent agenda, correct? Or do we need another motion on this one? I don't think so.
We can do a motion.
All right, we do another motion to approve the cover crop payments. Motion by Josh,
Second.
second by Lynn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
You opposed, James?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not the cover crops themselves, but I mean, it's not the cost share, but this process I just can't go along with.
Okay.
Process of.
Well, keeping it in a secret folder and
Well, that's government
Yeah,
rules.
yeah,
Like
this-
Steve goes back, this is government at its finest.
Yeah, I don't put it in the
Yeah.
agenda because the agenda is public and I don't like farmers' names
Yeah.
receiving funds to be on the agenda.
And we actually have in
Our
our.
right to privacy, I don't think we have a issue, I don't think we have any authority in it, we can't.
you got a right to privacy for taxpayer money. So,
Well, I think it's,
I mean, what I'm hearing here is that, this is, I just really don't understand. And I do know that's not, this isn't the way we do it in most soil and water.
With the
and I don't, that I don't.
How, what do you do?
offshore soil and water, we have the farmers listed.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, basically for the first vote,
Okay.
it's everything's listed except the name. But, I mean, when the check gets cashed, then obviously you need to
Mhm.
have that part of public record. So, I don't know.
I guess
Yeah,
I've
I've
always
brought
erred
this up
on the
before.
side of protecting the farmers' names.
Does
but-
is the original concept though is to keep any bias out? In other words, if you know who you're approved,
Right,
is the
right.
idea, so that you're not, it is subject to not who, but what is
What the
being
project
qualified?
is.
That's the rationale I've heard.
Right,
for
I believe is why they do that.
Initial vote,
So that there's
you
no,
don't have you don't have the name listed, but all the other information is there.
Well, it does become public record, like you say, because Lynn, didn't you say you checked on your neighbor and they had gotten millions of dollars? You were
Well,
able to
that
find
part,
it?
some of the things aren't included in that amount. I think it's like the basic farm program, from at least the website that I checked, but it didn't include like any of these extra type things, I don't believe. It's just a basic farm program payment.
The only way I know it plays out is if you run for office and someone's opposed to you, they'll dig up every piece of
Oh, yeah.
information and they'll find it and then they'll put it in the paper. So at some point it becomes non-private when somebody wants to know about what money you took.
It's the freedom of information, yeah, you're right, I've been checked out so many times of different things. that
Yeah.
turned in.
what they come up with, it ain't good.
Yeah, my boring life.
If it's not in the paper, then he didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I can do whatever this board wishes as far as the way I'm presenting it in the agendas. I could list the names, I could bring the names separately at the meeting, or,
But
Well, the
the,
SWCD, I mean, we get them all in a big packet,
But-
list out who
That's
everybody
right.
is.
That's
yeah,
right.
but the names are, we get to look at the folders so we know what
Yeah.
the names are anyway.
right,
We see who they are.
I don't
right.
think there'd be anything to be ashamed of for planting
No,
cover crops
no.
and taking an incentive. So, but even like Bob shall we do them all individually, which I think they should be in a consent agenda, but everyone likes to do them all individually. But you could always pull out of a consent agenda something you thought was erroneous or whatever.
I think to some people there could be shame in it. Because I purchased cover crops from you this year, and I didn't go through this program because I don't want people thinking I'm taking government money to do something that should work on its own.
I've been doing it without any payment for years.
Mhm.
So, but
Okay, let's move on. We can-
So, do you want me to print the names on the agendas? And that one? and then-
I don't know the legalities of it, so I can't tell you
Yeah.
what to do. You'd have to look
Yeah.
into that.
You'd have to look at, I don't remember why, this has been this way for so long, and I couldn't tell you
PL
why.
566 payments,
Well-
those were,
Hey,
that was a long time.
I'm a total believer in full transparency of government, and so unless there's some reason, I guess,
I
and,
couldn't.
and there is a lot of times where people have right to privacy, but yeah, if we need to err on one side or the other, I guess I'd rather err on being transparent than that would look. We don't want it to look like we're trying to cover something up what we're doing here.
Yeah, let's check it out. I don't know why this was, it's been this way
Yeah,
as long as I can remember.
But I can ask, you know, but I'm either way on that.
Okay.
I don't have an opinion on
All right, next, C, drinking water protection grant update.
it. Okay, and the red folders, Lynn has one, and Ann
There was
has
just a
one.
couple.
Two cover crop payments, and those are through Winona County SWCD. And that's been kind of an issue with this particular grant. This is the first year of it. And selling the cover crops, we talked about this at the Winona County SWCD meeting, has been more of a challenge this year because of COVID. Last year, Lance, for example, had a binder at FSA, so anybody that walked into FSA got to look at these really cool photos of somebody in Wilson Township that planted this, and they didn't say who the farmer was, but I think that was really a clever way for Lance to draw people in and, hey, I see that, tell me more about it. And
He's really out there on YouTube
Yes.
too, though.
yeah, he is.
Yeah.
So with COVID and the doors locked, we don't have that accessibility, and that's the same with the other SWCDs as well. And then, so I think there's that, and then right now, to date, the cover crops that have been implemented successfully are those early adopters, and now we're trying to reach the middle adopters, and they need some different motivations. We just have to try and figure out what that is yet. But, so we have 2 cover crop payments for the drinking water protection grant.
Okay, we'll do another motion, and obviously we'll check this out if the names have to be,
Yep.
it can be either way.
So move.
Okay, motion made, Josh,
Second?
second by Steve. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? You're right, Dave's okay.
Okay.
Okay, we'll check that out.
Okay, so we'll do that.
Next one we have, D, 2020 project accomplishments.
Okay, I had in the packet the accomplishments, just the summary of what we worked on this year.
What page you gonna know?
This will be page 39 in the packet. And just reviewing the Whitewater grant, we talked extensively about that at this meeting, what we're accomplishing through that. The surface water assessment grant, that was the monitoring that we're doing with the MPCA. And we finished year 1. And we're able to do what we needed to do for that. The lake monitoring was delayed until next year because we couldn't keep social distancing in a canoe together. So MPCA just pulled out all lake monitoring this year. And so right now, we're on track to do the monitoring next year, twice a month instead of 3 times a month, and doing the lake, hopefully.
The lake.
Lake Winona, yeah, each of the bays. And we do that 5 times, going out in each bay on the same day, once a month, May, June, July, August, September.
Okay, and that's because, even though that's out of this
Right,
Whitewater territory, it's because we're managing that
right,
money at the state.
right.
Yeah, so this is the overall, right?
Well, that's Luke, yeah, that's Luke, yeah, that's Luke.
So what hat is he wearing there?
He's wearing the Winona County hat because Winona County was a partner in this project. And so the grant money paid for his time to assist with monitoring. So the partners we had, Root River SWCD, Wabasha County SWCD, and Winona County. And he monitored in Winona County. So that's what we did, and then we have the drinking water grant. So that was just the summary of what we worked on this year, and that's all I have for that item.
Okay, that's that. Otherwise, office accommodations memo, Josh already brought that up, Steve. So Sheila, guess we're in a work in progress.
It's a work in progress, and we're still at the very, very initial stages. I had at everybody's spot, I put this was the ad that USDA put in the papers in the area, stating that they wanted requests for proposals from landlords. And Josh already explained that it is USDA's intention to keep totally separate from other entities in this bid. And also, let's see, with Darryl, I talked with him on this again yesterday, and I think he had mentioned this at the meeting when he had talked with Leanne Buck. The other SWCDs and NRCSs in the state that have gone through this recently, the process took about 18 to 24 months from start to finish. So I'm considering this the start. Friday was the deadline for proposals to be submitted. So,
I have a question.
yeah.
Is that process of splitting the USDA away from the or the county water districts something that's countrywide, that's actually a plan
It is.
that's going on?
It
Because
is.
some people in the Minnesota Soil and Water District meetings want to put a resolution through that they should be together. We shouldn't split them off, but, okay.
Yeah, and I think they could be side by side, but totally segregated. And so anyway, that's kind of the situation. There's a lot of unknowns at this point. As the SWCD decided to have a committee to look at this, and what would SWCD do in the future separate from NRCS. And so that hasn't even happened yet. They just talked about it at their meeting last week.
Really, for us, we've got to wait to see what they want, what they need.
Yep.
And once that comes, because we're in no position, we don't have to do anything. It's just going to come down to what do they want to do? How does that affect us? You know, and go from there.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a USDA, you know, soil water. We don't want anything to do with you. I think I'm sure there's some commingling things that are happening that probably shouldn't be happening in some certain cases, and USDA is just simply saying it's sensitive data, sensitive things, sensitive this. We just need to set our boundaries. It's okay, you're next to us or whatever. And in our situation, we just need to evaluate. This comes down to a physical thing. Do they have enough for him to do what they need to do? How does that squeeze us down? We could potentially downsize. Should we stay there? Do we need to move? Do we need to do another side of the building? So for us, it's just the after effect of what the USDA wants to do. So how does that fit us? So we're not looking to throw everything up in arms and start all over. We're just preparing for what they're doing.
I feel like for them, it's a matter of clarifying boundaries, kind of unmudding the water. So if we can get someone to bid on building us a place, and I've heard that's done, there are landlords that build spots specifically for the USDA. they have full control of, we don't have to wait for SWCD to come on board with us, or we're our own entity, we do what we want, we can move here, we can move there, we can offer we can maximize any efficiencies without being encumbered by anything else. That's kind of what I see going on.
Yeah, so that's all we know right now. In talking with Darryl, you know, right now the Whitewater is housed with SWCD. We pay rent to SWCD. And, you know, Darryl's thought was, well, if the Whitewater is, do we still continue to want the Whitewater to be housed with SWCD? Then that's another aspect of the equation that they need to consider. You know, and there's just so many unknowns. But when I talked with Darryl yesterday, he says, well, it would be helpful for the committee to know, he says, if the Whitewater absolutely does want to be with SWCD or absolutely does not want to be with SWCD, that would be good to know. Otherwise, he says, right now, it's just so preliminary. We don't know what the options are, and we don't know which direction to go. Right now, they just need to meet, evaluate, assess.
It's the difference between one office. You know, if we're together or not together, if you're housed at our facility, correct? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. That's really the difference of one office for us. And I don't know where it's going to go. We don't. That's the point.
Yeah.
And I've brought this up at other of our meetings before. Maybe a little bit of an inefficiency, frustration to me. We've already got an office for Sheila, and when she's not there in Winona County, it's just sitting empty, right? Your desk space. So it just becomes redundant and feels like, you know, they have to provide office space, we have to provide office space, and when she's not in one place, the other places might not be being used. So I certainly think from a Winona County standpoint, she could be there the full time.
But if I am in Winona County the full time, Winona County will charge Whitewater rent.
Well, I think we can work through that.
Well, and we don't know what those, and that's the thing, we don't know what the cost is either way. There's a lot of unknowns.
Well, I mean,
At this
for what
point.
it's worth, obviously, whatever ends up happening, and again, this is throwing darts at a dartboard and blindfold
Right.
here. We don't know, but we're going to want room to expand if we ever needed to for some reason to be able to add. We don't want to pigeonhole ourselves into a place. But at the same time, I think there's a benefit being next to the USDA because there's a lot of people that go in and out of there, and it gives us that exposure to be part of. We're not a separate building, right? And I think that's really helped promote the SWCDs over the years, being next to them, and whether there's any commingling happening, I don't know. I'm not there on a daily basis. So even if they lock all the doors and put keypads and blah, 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 just trying to be next to them, I can see that there's benefit to that just because it's a constant. Every time they walk in, they get to see the SWCDs. But if it doesn't happen at the same time, it isn't like it's a new business trying to get established. If we got to go to the other end of a building or a different location or whatever it is, it's not the end of the world. So, here's what I'll say. I'm confident that at the end of the day, we're gonna have a location that's gonna be financially feasible. It'll be somewhat expandable. Not that we need a huge location, but it should be somewhat expandable. And I'm hoping that it's better than what we have now, because our biggest downfall is probably our conference room, packing everybody in there, and it's difficult. It's really difficult to have any sizable meeting because we're all in there like this, and it's a pain. So I'm hoping this all said and done, we can at least overcome it.
But I think Sheila's question here is not about the co-location of those two offices. It's
Her place.
her office within the SWCD, and the statement about Winona County then charging rent for the additional time. Isn't this board paying the SWCD rent now for the part-time that you're there?
Yes.
So it'd just be whether this board gives you, I mean, you could go to Winona, and that same, we wouldn't cost the same more, just instead of divvying it to SWCD and to Winona, we'd put it all in one office. I'm just saying, there's an office sitting there, it's not being used when she's not there. If it makes your guys' transition any easier, I think we all can work that out.
And rent shouldn't be an issue, it's where you want to be would be more important, because your
Yeah.
rent should be similar.
Yeah. I think so.
I think it's gonna be a while.
Yeah.
We got-
So there's a lot, there's so many variables we cannot.
Really, we gotta wait till USDA makes some bigger
The
decisions.
US NRCS came to Homestead County 3 or 4 years. We went through 2 years. Do we build something for it? And nothing ever, no one moved, so.
Well, we've been talking about doing this for 10 years.
I know, so it's
yeah.
not, I don't think it's any.
But the NRCS is, they're not under the county's jurisdiction there, are they?
No, but they came to us and want to know, and FSA.
They're renting from you.
For renting from us, we said we would, and NRCS, and no, then FSA went with Dodge County. And I have no idea what Winona County's gonna do. Are they gonna join with another county FSA? That's in the works in different counties.
Well, yeah, that's not my,
I know, so just.
From what I know, no, they wanna keep Lewiston, yeah,
That's fine,
and Preston.
but this is gonna take a while.
Well, it is getting more heat. I mean, back when I first got on the board, it was in conversation, but it's serious now. I mean, this is papers, and I've been contacted, and I mean, they're good. Something's going to happen in the next 18 to 24 months. So,
All right,
yeah.
look,
Well, we'll keep you posted.
keep us posted.
All right, yep, we'll do that.
Okay, what else?
We did D.
Agency reports, anything else from anybody? We just not. Well, is the next meeting February 18th? Tentatively set.
The pandemic will be all over by then.
I doubt it. I doubt it. So,
Oh, 18th or the 17th?
Uh,
18th is a Thursday.
That, our meetings are on Thursday. Today's was the rescheduled meeting,
Oh, that's right. That's right.
the third Thursday. Is that the 18th?
That's the 18th.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, we're good.
all right. If not, need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by James, second by Josh. All in favor, say aye. Aye. So Lynn and Mabasha, you know who's Rich is getting replaced by? Do we know?
Well, we don't know, well,
We do.
Bob Walkus won, is the commissioner in his place.
Okay.
And Rich, when he was talking to me, said that he would recommend that Bob pick up the committees that he's on. So I don't know what will be decided on at the January meeting, but it could very well be Bob. And Steve said he already knows him, so.
I graduated from high school with Bob.
Is it?
Bob Walkus.
You know him, Mabasha? I don't.
He farms just outside of Plainview.
Okay.
Yeah. Then you must know Bob out here, don't you?
Oh, wait. What's
So-
All of these, yeah,
Sheila.
everywhere where I have that.
Sorry?
So this nitrogen deal. So
Uh-huh.
for the last 2 years, I've been heavily studying what's coming out of Europe. And
Oh, yeah.
we've been watching Pivot Bio, Invita, and Blue End. So we did a whole series of tests, myself, grow source, from Wilmer to La Crosse.
Yeah.
We used Invita, which we're actually distributors. We've got multiple dealers that carry that through us. And then we just took on Blue End. I will not